Judge Callisto's courtroom was known for its strictness, and anyone who stepped inside knew that he followed the law to the letter. On this particular day, Naya, a struggling single mother, stood before him, trying to explain why she could not afford to pay a $200 parking fine. The courtroom was filled with tension as she nervously presented her case. Nia had parked illegally in a handicapped space while rushing to get her sick daughter's medication, believing she would only be a few minutes. Unfortunately, time slipped away, and she returned to find a bright orange ticket on her windshield, a fine that accounted for nearly half of her weekly grocery budget. As Nia anxiously stood before the stern judge, hoping for some leniency, whispers filled the room, with spectators predicting her fate. Just as the judge called for order, an unexpected voice interrupted. Her 6-year-old daughter, Maya, announced that she was hungry and asked for a hamburger. The entire courtroom fell silent in shock. Normally, an outburst like this would be met with disapproval, especially in Judge Callisto's strict courtroom. Nia's face turned red with embarrassment, fearing that Maya's innocent remark had ruined any chance she had of escaping the fine. However, the judge's reaction surprised everyone. Instead of showing anger, his eyebrows lifted in curiosity. He addressed Maya gently, asking if she really wanted a hamburger. This unexpected moment marked the beginning of a turning point in the case, one that would ultimately change not just Nia's fate, but also the judge's perspective on justice and compassion. As the courtroom fell into stunned silence following Maya's unexpected outburst, Nia's heart pounded with anxiety. She had worked tirelessly to prepare her defense, hoping to convince the judge of her dire financial situation, but now, with her daughter interrupting the proceedings to ask for food, she feared everything had been ruined. The severe Judge Callisto was known for his strict rulings, and an interruption like this was unprecedented in his courtroom. The audience, initially whispering predictions about Naya's fate, now watched in shock, waiting to see how the judge would react. Naya felt her face flush with embarrassment as she bent down and quickly whispered to Maya that they couldn't speak out of turn in court. She had hoped that bringing Maya along might soften the judge's stance, but now she worried that her daughter's innocent remark would be seen as careless parenting. However, to everyone's surprise, Judge Callisto did not show the anger they had expected. Instead, he raised an eyebrow and looked curiously at the small child beside Nia. "Did you say hamburgers, young lady?" he asked in a voice far gentler than the stern tone he was known for. His unexpected response caused the audience to hold their breath, unsure of what would happen next. Nia, still overwhelmed with embarrassment, could only watch helplessly as her daughter nodded in response. Instead of replying directly to the judge, however, Maya's wide brown eyes drifted toward a large, somber-looking portrait of a man in a judge's wig hanging on the wall. She seemed entirely unaware of the tension she had created. Nia's heart raced as she worried about the consequences of Maya's words. Would the judge take this as a sign of disrespect? Would he dismiss her entirely and insist that she pay the fine without considering her circumstances? But instead of scolding the child, Judge Callisto observed Maya in silence for a moment before shifting his gaze back to Nia. The tension in the room was so thick that Nia felt as if she were being scrutinized under a microscope. Finally, breaking the heavy silence, the judge leaned slightly forward and asked again, "Is there something you'd like to tell me, young lady?" Before Nia could intervene, Maya confidently took a step toward the judge's bench. With a small but clear voice, she responded, "Yes, sir." She explained that her stomach was growling because of all the talking and that she and her mother hadn't had breakfast yet. A wave of fresh embarrassment washed over Nia. She had been so focused on getting Maya ready, dealing with traffic, and preparing her defense that morning that she hadn't realized they had skipped breakfast. Now, in front of the entire courtroom, her daughter had revealed yet another struggle, one that only added to the perception that Nia was struggling as a parent. What Nia didn't realize was that this moment would mark the beginning of an unexpected shift in the trial, one that no one, not even Judge Callisto, had anticipated. As Maya's innocent words echoed through the courtroom, Nia felt an overwhelming sense of embarrassment. She had spent days preparing her defense, hoping to convince the judge to reconsider her fine. But now she feared her daughter's unexpected interruption had destroyed any chance of leniency. However, instead of reacting with frustration, Judge Callisto remained calm, his usual stern demeanor softened by curiosity. His unexpected patience gave Maya the confidence to continue speaking. The judge leaned forward slightly, his interest clearly piqued. "Tell me, young lady," he said, in an uncharacteristically gentle tone. "What does your mother do for work?" Maya's eyes brightened at the opportunity to talk about her mother. "She works really hard," she said proudly. "She makes cakes and cookies at the bakery, and sometimes she works late at the restaurant." Judge Callisto nodded thoughtfully. His reputation as a strict by-the-book judge was well known, but something about Maya's honesty seemed to intrigue him. Encouraged by his response, Maya continued, unknowingly revealing the hardships her mother faced every day. "She's always working," Maya added. "She has to take care of me all by herself. Sometimes she's really tired, but she still makes sure I have everything I need." The courtroom, which had once been filled with whispers about Naya's violation, now fell silent as people listened to the little girl's heartfelt words. For the first time, they saw Nia not just as someone who had broken the law, but as a struggling single mother trying her best to provide for her child. Naya's heart ached as she listened to Maya speak. She had never intended for her daughter to reveal so much about their personal struggles, but Maya's innocent candor had laid everything bare. She wanted to interrupt, to explain, but the judge's expression stopped her. Judge Callisto's gaze remained fixed on Maya, his usual sternness replaced by something softer, perhaps understanding. He asked a few more questions, learning about the long hours Nia worked and the sacrifices she made to support her daughter. Maya, in her simple and honest way, painted a picture of a hard-working mother who had made one mistake out of desperation. As the judge listened, his perspective began to shift. He had built his career on upholding the law without exception, but in that moment he realized that justice was not always black and white. Sometimes circumstances mattered. Sometimes the law needed to serve the people, not just punish them. By the time Maya finished speaking, the entire courtroom was captivated. Even those who had been indifferent to Naya's case now saw her in a different light. For the first time in his long career, Judge Callisto was forced to reconsider what true justice meant. The entire courtroom remained silent as Judge Callisto absorbed Maya's words. The hardened judge, known for his unwavering commitment to the law, seemed to be contemplating something deeper. The audience watched with bated breath, expecting him to render a final verdict, but instead, he did something entirely unexpected. He leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the small girl before him, and asked, "Well, Maya, since your mummy broke the parking rule, what do you think her punishment should be?" A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. This was unheard of. Judge Callisto, infamous for his strict rulings, was asking a 6-year-old for her opinion on justice. Even Nia's eyes widened in shock. Maya, however, did not appear fazed by the question. She looked up at the judge with a thoughtful expression before answering in a clear, confident voice, "I think you're the judge, so you should decide." For the first time in what felt like forever, laughter rang through the courtroom. It was light, genuine, and completely unexpected in such a serious setting. Even Judge Callisto, whose courtroom was typically devoid of humor, couldn't suppress a small smile. The tension that had filled the air since the beginning of the trial dissipated, replaced by a surprising warmth. Judge Callisto observed Maya for a moment longer before reclining in his chair, appearing to consider his next move carefully. Then, he did something that left everyone in shock. He raised his hand and announced a short recess. The courtroom collectively gasped. Recess? In the middle of such a minor case? No one could understand what the judge was thinking. The bailiff, after receiving whispered instructions from the judge, left through a side door. When he returned a few minutes later, he was carrying a small brown paper bag. Judge Callisto took the bag, then turned toward Maya with an expression that could almost be described as kind. He extended the bag toward her and said, "Here you go, young lady. We can't have you going hungry in my courtroom." Maya's eyes lit up with delight as she eagerly accepted the bag. Inside were a sandwich and a juice box, neatly packaged. "Thank you, sir," she said with a beaming smile. Nia, overwhelmed with emotion, could barely find the words to respond. She had expected to face harsh judgment, yet here was this strict, no-nonsense judge showing a level of kindness she never could have imagined. As the courtroom settled once more, it was clear that something had shifted. This wasn't just a legal proceeding anymore. It was a moment of humanity, and for the first time, Nia dared to hope that justice might be served with a touch of compassion. As the courtroom settled from the unexpected moment of warmth, Judge Callisto turned his attention back to Nia's case. The severity that once dominated his face seemed to have softened, yet his authority remained intact. He picked up Nia's case file and carefully examined the details once more. This time, however, he was not just looking at a legal infraction. He was looking at a struggling mother doing her best to navigate life's hardships. The entire courtroom watched in anticipation. Judge Callisto had a reputation for handing out the harshest penalties without hesitation. Would he now revert to his usual strictness, or had Maya's innocent honesty truly made an impact? After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Ms. Nia," he began, his tone even and measured, "I have reviewed your case thoroughly, and I must acknowledge that you did break the law by parking in a handicapped space without authorization." A wave of tension filled the room. Nia held her breath, bracing for the inevitable. However, the judge continued, his voice taking on an unexpectedly thoughtful quality. "Under normal circumstances, a violation like this would warrant an automatic fine, as the law is in place to protect those who truly need those parking spaces. However, today is not just about the letter of the law, it is about understanding circumstances." The audience leaned in closer, sensing a shift. "After considering the details of your situation as well as your previously clean record, I have decided to dismiss the fine." Gasps filled the room. Nia's eyes widened in disbelief. Did she hear that correctly? The fine was dismissed? She had spent days worrying, preparing, and fearing the worst. And now, with just a few words, the burden that had weighed on her so heavily was lifted. Tears welled up in her eyes as relief flooded through her. She wanted to express her gratitude, but the judge wasn't finished. "I understand that being a single parent comes with immense challenges," he continued. "That is why I am also providing you with a list of resources, organizations that offer assistance for single mothers, childcare support, and even career training programs. Some of these programs provide free online degrees, which could help you secure better opportunities in the future." Nia stared at the judge in complete astonishment. This was beyond anything she had expected. Not only was she being freed from the fine, but she was being given a chance to improve her life. The courtroom erupted into applause, something that had likely never happened in Judge Callisto's courtroom before. His reputation as a rigid, by-the-book judge had been momentarily overshadowed by his newfound understanding that justice is not just about punishment, but also about providing opportunities for redemption. For the first time in a long while, Nia felt hopeful. As she held Maya close, she realized that this day had changed more than just the outcome of her case. It had changed the way she saw the world, and perhaps even the way Judge Callisto saw justice. News of Judge Callisto's unexpected act of kindness quickly spread beyond the courtroom. What had started as a routine parking violation case had turned into a remarkable story of compassion, justice, and second chances. Social media platforms and local news outlets picked up the heartwarming exchange between the strict judge and the innocent 6-year-old girl who had unknowingly softened his approach. People were captivated by how Maya's candid words and Nia's struggle had led to a rare moment of empathy in a place often associated with rigid laws and harsh rulings. For Nia, the judge's decision was life-changing. The weight of the $200 fine had been a crushing burden, one that could have meant missing rent or sacrificing necessities for Maya. But beyond the financial relief, what truly impacted Nia was the list of resources Judge Callisto had provided. She had never known that such support programs existed: free childcare services, career training opportunities, and even online degree programs that could help her build a better future for herself and Maya. Determined to make the most of this second chance, Nia wasted no time. She reached out to one of the organizations on the list and learned that she qualified for an online business degree program. The possibility of furthering her education had once seemed like a distant dream after her savings were stolen, but now, with a little help, she saw a real opportunity to change her future. With access to childcare assistance, she could focus on both her studies and her work without feeling overwhelmed. As Nia took her first steps toward a brighter future, Judge Callisto also found himself reflecting on the case. For years, he had prided himself on upholding the law with strict precision, believing that justice was best served without exception. However, Maya's innocence and Nia's resilience had reminded him of something he had long forgotten: that justice is not just about enforcing rules, but also about understanding people's struggles. It was a rare moment of self-awareness for a man who had built his career on being unwavering. From that day forward, Judge Callisto viewed his role on the bench differently. He still upheld the law, but he also took the time to consider the individual circumstances behind each case. He realized that real justice sometimes required more than punishment. It required guidance, support, and a chance for redemption. Nia's story became an inspiration to many, proving that even in the most unexpected places, kindness and understanding can create profound change. She had entered the courtroom expecting to lose hope, but she walked out with something far greater: a chance at a better future, not just for herself, but for her daughter as well. Life often presents us with unexpected challenges, and sometimes we find ourselves facing difficult situations beyond our control. The story of Nia and Judge Callisto teaches us a valuable lesson. Compassion and understanding have the power to change lives. For many years, Judge Callisto upheld the law without exception, believing that justice was about strict enforcement. However, one child's innocent honesty reminded him that justice is not just about punishment. It is about fairness, humanity, and recognizing the struggles people face. His small act of kindness changed Nia's life, proving that even within rigid systems, there is room for empathy. This lesson is especially meaningful as we grow older and reflect on our own experiences. Life is not always black and white. People's hardships are often invisible to others. A kind word, a moment of understanding, or simply choosing to listen can make a profound difference in someone's life. True justice is not just about following rules, but about uplifting those in need. As elders, we have the wisdom to guide younger generations in choosing kindness over judgment. The world may seem harsh at times, but stories like this remind us that small acts of generosity can create ripples of change. In our daily lives, let us strive to be more compassionate, more patient, and more willing to see beyond a person's mistakes. After all, a single moment of understanding can offer someone a second chance at a better life.